Hey everybody, this is Brian from pnbhomesteading.com, little website we're setting up to do a blogging of our urban homestead that we're running here in the Pacific Northwest. So I thought I'd do a little walk around today and show you what we have in our yard. Let me go ahead and switch the camera view here so that way you can get a good view of us walking around. Okay, so this is the view of our backyard. It's early spring 2017. And I kind of want to give everybody a kind of a overview of the layout of how we have everything. So that's our upper hillside, where we have a couple of garden boxes, a bench, kind of a nature area with different spring bulbs blooming. This is our yard. This is a clover patch that we have that we grow every year. This is used for pollinators, for bees and butterflies. Go over here. You can see over there those boxes down there. Those are our potato towers. And this is another garden box here where I've got a pea trellis set up. We've got our spring peas planted. That's a little patio we have, a fire pit, and we have two hoop houses I set up yesterday. That's where we're going to be putting our tomatoes that I grow in our indoor greenhouse. It's an indoor grow tent with LED lights that I have underneath our house. And then there's the trellises I've made for peas, and then later those will transition into squash and cucumbers for our summer crop. Let's go ahead and head down here. This is our lower deck. These are a couple of garden boxes that I put together for raised garden beds. And right now I've got a little bit of mini hoop houses on top of these. And we have some spring plants in here. You know, some greens, radishes, turnips, that type of thing. And this is the other box. And we'll go back this direction. We have our worm bin. That's a little insulated cozy that I made for the worms to keep them alive during the winter. Usually this is in our garage in the wintertime. I just moved this out here this weekend, and so this is where it'll stay for the summer, where it doesn't get anything but morning sunshine, so it stays nice and cool and temperate. Okay, let's go ahead and go walk around out here. This is a herb garden that I put together for Paula. So we have all of our summer herbs, and we have some that survive over the winter, like the sage and the rosemary. Yard, and you can see that the clover, I reseeded this, and I just let the native, whatever of the ryegrasses that were here once before when this used to be a lawn is now being reseeded each year, clovers. And we had a pretty hard freeze last year, so a lot of it was wiped out with that cold temperature, but you can see that the grass is quite healthy now, and this is actually used to be quite a muddy area, and I come through with a broad fork each year, and it's a 12-inch tines on this broad fork, and I rock that through and poke it into the soil and create, pathways for nutrients to get down in there. And so this kind of rebuilding this area to make it a little healthier. And this is our roses. This is Paula's roses. I made two little rose islands here for her. These used to actually be spread out throughout the yard, but we wanted to put them into one planting in two sections, so that way they could be easier to harvest and, focal points of, beauty when they start blooming. So we'll go around the side yard here. Here's another little area. I've seeded this with wildflowers, and you can see those are germinating here. And then we also have some raspberry bushes that I've separated and put in some new cuttings, so we're going to have raspberries coming up through here and along this side over here. We've got our aronia berries, got some raspberries. This is our sea berries. These two bushes are new this year. We have another sea berry down here, and then there's the male on the end, and this is our goji berry bush, one of them. We have another one over here. We usually get probably at least 2 to 3 pounds of goji berries, which are very healthy for you and contain a lot of antioxidants. Here's another aronia berry. That's a sea berry. This is our Japanese maple that we put back here. It's about 8 years old. Looks really nice when it's fully bloomed. And all the leaves have come out. There's a hummingbird feeder. And this is one of our apple trees. As you can see, we do have quite a difference of trees in this yard. We have over 40 fruit and nut trees in this property and throughout our backyard, and we have one out in our front yard. But we try to build a nice little habitat for birds and bees and the pollinators. And these are all planted on a principle of rotational pairing. So like we have here is a peach. Next to it we have an apple. Then next to it a peach. Then we have a pear. And then over here we have a plum. And then next to the pear we have another plum. And so we rotate what we have planted next to each other, so that way it cuts down on the pest infestation transfer. Basically one pest that likes to eat apples will have to try to figure out how it's going to get to the next apple tree and just can't jump from branch to a pear next to it. So this is a pear. Then we have a Granny Smith apple. And then this is our almond tree. And then these are our blueberries. We have blueberries throughout the property. We have about 40 different blueberry bushes. And then up here we have a little bamboo area and all these little bird houses I've set up. We usually get, 3-4 pairs of birds that decide to nest in these bird houses. They're little black-capped chickadees that we have native in this area, and they really like those houses. And this is our other pollinator island. I'm creating sort of a shade area. As you can tell, it's got clover growing in it right now, but I've seeded it with a partial shade mix wildflowers. And up here we have a little native area that used to be much like the hillsides you'll see around us, covered with ivy. And I've taken this and I have transitioned it into a more native species type thing where we have Oregon grape. We have a bunch of different things like comfrey growing through here, and bulbs for the spring. And then I put in some clumping bamboo to give us a nice backdrop to break up the wood fence line we have along here. So here's one of our trails, and this is a pawpaw tree. He hasn't bloomed yet. Come out of dormancy for winter. There's another pear tree, and these are our garden boxes up above. These back boxes we've transitioned to be permanent perennials. So we have fig trees, and then we have blueberry bushes, and we have aronia berries in this box. And in this box we have the red gummies, and then we have salmon berries in the front. In that far box we have another fig in the center, and then we have a Lee and a Lang jujubes, and then also with some onions in the front. We have our cover crop in the two big boxes. Those are made of juniper. They have a grid system watering lines laid out that I made last year. So we can get a closer look at that. That might be interesting for some people to see. That's our watering system I put in. It hooks to a hose system that we just run up during the better times of the year. These are lingonberries. They're a nice little red berry that you can pick and eat and put in your protein drinks or dehydrate. And then this is the grid system I was talking about. And I got a cover crop on here for our spring cover crop. It's a red clover. And I'll let that just grow throughout the year. And then I plant right into that. And this year we're going to be doing a mass planting of tomatoes, which I'll show you what that looks like once I get down. And I show you our indoor greenhouse, which is a grow tent with LED lights and supplemental heating and watering system. Here's another garden box that I put in last year. Let's walk down here. This is our other wildflower planting area. I've got comfrey in here, and then you can see the wildflower seeds have begun germinating. Come down the side here, tulips. And then this is the potato boxes, or potato towers. as some people call them. You basically take these and you stack them on top of each other as the potatoes grow, and as they get higher inside of here, you put in more soil and you continue to layer upwards. That way by the end of the season you have an entire tower filled with potatoes. And this is one of our plantings of our tulips. Here's one of the grow tents. Here's one of the A-frame towers that I built for growing our summer vegetables. And right now it's going to be planted with peas, which you can see they're starting to sprout down there. These are a Cascadia pea. And here's the tulips. Okay, we're going to head down here, go underneath the house. I'm going to show everybody what we got over here. Here's the extra towers for the potato towers. So I've got them stacked up, just kind of, that's the nice thing about these, you can stack them and they're right out of the way for everybody. And you know, they're just stuck underneath our deck here. This is my compost tea brewing area, where I basically take the comfrey leaves and I have them brewing inside of here, breaking down, mixed with molasses, kelp, and just some water. And then I run a air stone with an air pump system to keep it aerated so it doesn't go anaerobic. And then I have two nozzles here that I got set up to where I actually drain this into my water containers, and I mix it and dilute it down and spread that all over my yard. I also have fish emulsion inside of there, but I only put that usually early in the season. So let's go ahead and head under the house here. This is where we have two different setups. This is our lettuce grow area. This is what I call the LED salad bar. So I have LED lights that shine down on this, and I run these at opposite times. So when this is on, the lights in the grow tent over here are off, and then when I have this on, you know, these are off. So right now it's nighttime for these plants, and this is a kind of a neat little thing that I put in here for harvest, is I have this on a pull-out tray. So you just pull it out, and you're able to do your cuttings and harvest. So this is, right now I've got some different variants of kale here. I've got my chard back there in the back. I've got some of my overflow tomato plants just sitting here waiting to go outside into the hoop houses. And here's some more chard, a little bit of spinach, and then that tray there was our, I guess, mescalines with mustard greens. It's a spicy kind of mix that you put into your salad. It's quite good. Okay, so let's close this up. Put this here, and it locks back into place. I built that using old kitchen drawers, slides. And then we have timers here that actually regulate under temperature of the heat mats that are underneath these trays. So that way it keeps the temperature at a nice 72 degrees under their feet. And then there's a timer over here for lighting control, which allows you to set, you know, right now I'm running about 13 hours of daylight on those to help them grow faster. And so let's get a back shot here of, this is the grow tent. You know, some people like to grow some medicinal herbs here in the Pacific Northwest. I prefer to grow things you can eat. So here's my system that I have set up. I have over here, this is the water timer. I have that set to water every hour for, and there's two different, you know, you can have up to, I believe, 6 with this. You can open up this thing, and I believe, you'll see I'm using just 2, so I guess you can have, well, you can have 3 different zones of, you know, connection. Let's say 6 total, I believe. Let's see, yeah, 6. There's 6 in there. And so what you do with this is you set up your timer to where you say how much you want it to water. So this is an example. This is the one that's being used on the tomato, you know, starts. It goes for 2 seconds every hour. And that's a start time, just whenever you wanted it to start in the cycle, so it doesn't really affect anything. You just set it to a time forward from where you're currently at, and it will start beginning the cycle once that time is reached. I have sensor, which I don't use a water sensor on this. I just have it just blanket water every 2 hours or every hour for so many seconds. And it opens at 5 a.m. and then it will close off this cycling at 7 p.m. Manual off, and then that's pretty much that. This one here is our humidity sensor, so it senses when it's at a certain temperature. A certain humidity. If I say I want it to be, like right now I believe I have it at 60% humidity, and so I have a set of dual fans inside of the tent that actually evacuate the excess moisture and bring the humidity down. And when it gets to a certain point, it hits a threshold that will kick the fans on, and then those fans will kick off once it gets down to the appropriate humidity setting. This one here is my light sensor. So I have it programmed to come on at 5 a.m. 7 days a week, and it runs until 6 p.m. So that way I'm running on a 13-hour cycle right now, getting it ready to go outside for spring. And then right here, this is my heating unit, and it keeps the temperature inside the tent at a certain temperature. If it gets too hot, it has both heating and cooling capabilities. So I have two 8-inch fans inside of there to bring in cool air from inside the storage area where we're filming this. And when it gets too hot, it will evacuate the fan, turn on the fans, and evacuate the excess heat from the top of the tent outside through a vent system that I've installed. And here is the watering system. So I have two solenoids. These are basically just your average garden variety water sprinkler solenoids for what you would use for a yard. And I ran plumbing inside of here, and then I have the ability to also hand water, for areas where that might be a little dry outside the region of most of the sprinkler nozzles on the inside of the tent. So let's go ahead and open up the tent. Open. Here, it's kind of hard to do this when you're one-handed trying to open up these doors, but this is my grow tent, and this plant here is called an indigo rose, and I've been growing this since last June inside this tent. And so when winter came, I still have fresh tomatoes to eat for Paula and I throughout the entire winter. So you can see these are a dark, and they have a little bit of red on them. And if you let them continue, they are a glossy red, and then they turn a dark, blackish color. And then when they get to be really ripe, they will lose the shine, and they will actually go to a flat color, and you will actually get a smoky. It almost tastes like a smoky cedar taste. It's really good on salads or fresh eggs. And down here, these are this year's tomato starts. Some of these are getting quite large, and they need to go out to the hoop house. What we're doing this year is we have two different types of cold winter plants, because last year we had a very cold spring and quite a cold summer through July, where it didn't give a lot of production to some of our tomato plants. So I started two Russian variants, Crimson Sprinter and Moskovich, and they are in here. And then I also have these here are my tomatillos. I'm going to try growing these along the fence where they get a lot of heat. And then there's some more tomatillos there. And then I also have two Brandywine variants. One's Rose OG, and the other is German Johnson. Those are basically like Brandywine type variant of tomatoes. They're a big, beefy type tomato with a lot of flavor. And then I also have just your garden variety tomato plants of, there's some other variants. I don't think I have any cherry tomatoes this year. And I was growing pea plants in here, and you can see that they've all kind of died off, and I'm just basically using those as nitrogen fixers to give some extra nitrogen to these tomato plants. And as you can tell, these are really dark green. With the lighting, with the LED lights, it's a little hard to tell, but you have to take it with a grain of salt. And this is my watering system here. I've got two little brackets that hold this, and this is one of the controlled systems. So these turn on and mist You know, these are the things that are set for every hour for 2 seconds. So they give a nice little spray every 2 seconds, every hour. And so then it keeps the tomatoes nicely hydrated so they don't end up dying off. And then I'll come through and spot water in the evenings when I get home from work. And then here's a sunflower that I grew this year. I was actually had an issue with early when I started working with these tomatoes. I had a lot of aphids that were starting to integrate into the tint from the outside, and so I brought in these sunflowers and I grew them over the winter, and I don't know how they came in, but there was these little parasitic wasp helpers. Boy, they wiped out the aphids that I had in here, so they were quite helpful. There's my wife. There's Paula's poinsettia down there. And keep him alive. He's been alive for the last 5 years, so we bring him upstairs during Christmas time, and then after Christmas we put him under the LED lights along with our lemon tree that we have outside that I have on a rolling cart. So that's kind of what we have set up here at the little urban homestead that we like to call home. So from, you know, in the next few weeks to years, we're going to be posting quite a few videos, and I hope you guys are all willing to come along and take the ride with us. So we'll talk to you next week.